Cheating Stories Exposed, the channel dedicated to intense, real-life stories of betrayal, deception, and the moment everything falls apart. This is my story of how a song destroyed my wedding day and revealed a truth I never saw coming. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd stand in a courtroom fighting over what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. But there I was, 6 months after my wedding, listening to my own father-in-law testify about why he'd hired a band to sabotage my marriage before it even began. Let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Connor, and 3 years ago I met a woman named Adriana at a charity fundraiser in downtown Philadelphia. I was there representing my law firm. She was there with her family's foundation. The Castellanos were old money, real estate development going back 3 generations. The kind of family that had buildings named after them. Adriana was different from anyone I'd ever dated. She was elegant, composed, and she had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when she spoke to you. We started dating that winter. By spring, I knew she was the one. I want to be clear about something up front. I'm not for money. My father was a high school teacher. My mother worked in medical billing. I put myself through law school on scholarships and student loans that I'd only just finished paying off. When I started dating Adriana, I was a junior associate at a mid-tier firm, making decent money but nothing close to what her family considered comfortable. Her father, Dominic Castellano, made that very clear from the beginning. The first time I met him was at their family estate in Gladwine. It wasn't just a house. It was a compound. Gated entrance, circular driveway with a fountain, the whole thing. Dominic answered the door himself, which I later learned was unusual. He normally had staff for that. He looked me up and down, like he was appraising a used car. "So you're the attorney," he said, not a question, a statement, like he'd already done a background check on me, which I later learned he had. Dinner that night was tense. Adriana's mother, Cecilia, was polite but distant. Her younger brother, Leo, barely looked up from his phone, but Dominic, he asked questions. Where did I grow up? What kind of law did I practice? What were my career goals? Where did I see myself in 10 years? Every answer I gave felt like it was being run through some kind of algorithm in his head, calculating whether I was worthy of his daughter. Near the end of dinner, he put down his wine glass and leaned back in his chair. "Adriana tells me you two are serious," he said. "We are, sir," I replied. He nodded slowly. "My daughter has had opportunities with young men from established families, men whose futures were secured before they were born. You understand what I'm saying?" I understood perfectly. He was telling me I wasn't good enough. "I do," I said, "but I also know that I love your daughter and I'm going to build a life that makes her happy." Dominic smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see." Despite her father's obvious disapproval, Adriana and I grew closer. She told me not to worry about him, that he was protective but would come around eventually. She said he'd been the same way with her older sister's husband, and now they got along fine. I wanted to believe her. A year into our relationship, I proposed. I'd saved for months to buy her a ring. Nothing extravagant by her family's standards, but it was beautiful and it was mine to give her. I proposed at the Franklin Institute in front of the giant heart exhibit where we'd had our first official date. She said yes immediately, tears in her eyes, and everything felt perfect. Then came the wedding planning. Adriana and I wanted something simple, a ceremony in a garden or a vineyard. 150 guests, personal and intimate, but Cecilia had other ideas. And Cecilia, I quickly learned, always got her way when it came to family events. The guest list ballooned to 300. The venue changed from a vineyard to the Castellano estate itself, which meant bringing in professional landscapers to transform the grounds. The budget, which Dominic insisted on covering despite my protests, climbed into 6 figures. "This is what we do," Cecilia told me during one planning meeting. "The Castellanos have a reputation to uphold. This wedding reflects on the entire family." I looked at Adriana, waiting for her to push back. She just squeezed my hand under the table. "It's easier to let them handle it," she whispered later. "If we fight them on every detail, we'll never make it to the actual wedding." So I let it go. I focused on my work, on building my career so I could eventually support us without her family's money hanging over our heads. I made junior partner that year. It felt like a validation, like proof that I belonged in Adriana's world, but Dominic never acknowledged it. At family dinners, he'd ask about my cases, but always with this tone that suggested he was humoring me, like I was a child showing him a drawing I'd made at school. The wedding was set for early October. Perfect weather. The estate gardens in full autumn color. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Cecilia held a final planning meeting with all the vendors. I was there. Adriana was there. Dominic sat in the corner reading the Wall Street Journal but clearly listening to everything. The florist presented her designs. The caterer went over the menu. The photographer showed us example shots from previous events he'd done at the estate. Then the bandleader arrived. His name was Vincent. A guy in his 50s who'd been running a wedding band for 20 years. He'd played at Leo's engagement party and came highly recommended. Vincent pulled out a folder. With the set list we'd agreed on, a mix of standards and contemporary songs that worked for all age groups. We've also included your first dance song, Vincent said, looking at Adriana and me. At Last by Etta James, beautiful choice. Adriana smiled. It's our song, we heard it playing the night we met. Vincent made a note. Perfect, we'll make it special. Dominic looked up from his paper. Vincent, a word. The two of them stepped out onto the terrace. Through the glass doors, I could see Dominic talking. Vincent nodding. Dominic pulling out his wallet and handing over what looked like several bills. They shook hands when they came back inside. Vincent seemed different, more formal. He wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Everything settled? Cecilia asked. Everything's settled, Dominic said, returning to his chair. I felt a flicker of unease but pushed it down. Dominic was probably just tipping him in advance or adding some special request for the cocktail hour. Nothing sinister. I should have asked what they'd discussed. I didn't. The morning of the wedding arrived with clear skies and perfect temperature. The estate looked incredible. White chairs arranged in neat rows facing a wooden arch covered in burgundy roses and trailing ivy. The string quartet we'd hired for the ceremony was set up to one side. The band would take over for the reception. I got ready in one of the guest houses with my groomsmen. My brother Tyler, my best friend from law school Andre, and two colleagues from the firm. Everyone was relaxed, joking around, the normal pre-wedding energy. My father found me as I was adjusting my tie in the mirror. You nervous? He asked. Not about marrying her, I said. Just about everything going smoothly. He put his hand on my shoulder. Your mother and I are proud of you, Connor. You've built a good life. You're marrying someone you love. That's what matters. I nodded, grateful for his words. My parents had always been supportive, even when I was drowning in law school debt and working 100-hour weeks. They'd never judged Adriana for coming from money or made me feel like I was betraying my roots by dating someone from her world. Unlike Dominic, who'd never missed an opportunity to remind me where I came from. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 in the afternoon. At 3:45, I took my place at the altar with the officiant, a friend of the Castellano family who was a retired judge. The guests were seated. The string quartet began playing. Tyler stood beside me as my best man. You ready for this? He whispered. More than ready, I said. The music shifted to the processional. First came Cecilia, escorted by her brother, then Adriana's bridesmaids, her sister Natalia, 2 of her college friends, and her cousin. Everyone looked beautiful. Everything was perfect. Then the music changed to the bridal entrance. Everyone stood. And Adriana appeared at the end of the aisle with Dominic beside her. She looked breathtaking. Her dress was simple but elegant. Fitted lace bodice, flowing silk skirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a low bun with small white flowers tucked into it. She was smiling at me, really smiling. And for a moment, every doubt, every bit of tension with her family just fell away. This was it. This was us starting our life together. Dominic walked her down the aisle slowly, his face unreadable. When they reached the altar, the officiant asked the traditional question. Who gives this woman to be married to this man? Dominic looked at Adriana, then at me. Then he said, her mother and I do, and placed Adriana's hand in mine. His grip lingered for just a second too long. His eyes locked on mine with an expression I couldn't read. Then he stepped back and took his seat next to Cecilia. The ceremony began. The officiant spoke about love and commitment. We'd written our own vows. Mine focused on partnership and building a future together. Hers on trust and supporting each other through challenges. When we finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. The officiant smiled. By the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Connor, you may kiss your bride. I kissed Adriana, and the guests erupted in applause. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant announced, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Connor Mitchell. String quartet was supposed to start playing our recessional music, a light, joyful piece we'd chosen together, but they didn't. Instead, there was a moment of silence. Confused silence. Then from the side of the ceremony space where the band had been setting up for the reception, Vincent stepped forward with a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice amplified across the lawn, the father of the bride has requested a special song to honor the newlyweds. I felt Adriana's hand tighten. Vincent raised his hand and the band began to play. It wasn't our song. It wasn't any song from our set list. It was something else, something I didn't recognize, slow tempo, minor key. The kind of melody that feels inherently sad even before you hear the lyrics. Then the vocalist began to sing. The song was about secrets, about lies built on lies, about a woman who'd promised forever to a man while hiding who she really was, about a choice she'd made years ago that she could never take back. Every word felt like it was written specifically about betrayal. I looked at Adriana. The color had drained from her face. She was staring at her father. Dominic sat in the front row, arms crossed, watching us with an expression of grim satisfaction. The guests began to murmur. People were looking at each other, confused. Some of the older relatives looked uncomfortable. A few people took out their phones. Whether to record or just as a nervous habit, I couldn't tell. The song continued. Verse after verse about deception and hidden pasts and the moment when everything comes to light. I leaned close to Adriana. "What is this?" She shook her head, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I don't know, I don't." But she did know. I could see it in her face. The song finally ended. There was no applause, just stunned silence. Vincent set down his microphone and quickly walked away, avoiding eye contact with anyone. The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly. "Well, congratulations to the happy couple. Please proceed to the reception area." I took Adriana's hand and walked down the aisle, every eye in the audience on us. Instead of the joyful, triumphant walk that's supposed to happen after a wedding, it felt like a walk of shame. As we passed Dominic's row, I heard him say quietly, "Now you know." Adriana pulled me faster down the aisle. We made it to the house, the space that had been set up as a private room for us before the reception. As soon as the door closed, Adriana collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands. "Adriana," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "what just happened? What was that song?" "I need a minute," she said through her fingers. "We don't have a minute. There are 300 people out there who just heard whatever that was, and your father clearly orchestrated it, so I need you to tell me right now what's going on." She looked up at me, mascara starting to run. "Connor, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Those words, the way she said them, they confirmed my worst fear. There was something she hadn't told me. "Start from the beginning," I said, sitting down across from her. Adriana took a shaky breath. "When I was in college, I made a mistake, a huge mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "I was dating someone my father approved of. His name was Julian. His family owned a chain of hotels on the East Coast. Old money, connected families, everything my father wanted." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Okay." Julian and I dated for 2 years, junior and senior year. Everyone assumed we'd get married after graduation. Julian certainly assumed it. My father had basically planned the whole thing out. "What happened?" She looked down at her hands. "I got pregnant." The room tilted slightly. "You have a child?" "No," she said quickly. "No, I terminated the pregnancy. I was 22. I wasn't ready. Julian wanted me to keep it. Said we'd move up the wedding. But I couldn't. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I wasn't ready to marry him, so I ended it." I processed this. "And your father knew?" "He found out. I tried to hide it, but he has his ways." He was furious, not because of the pregnancy, because of what I'd done. He said I'd embarrassed the family, that Julian's family would never forgive the insult, that I'd destroyed a valuable alliance. "An alliance," I repeated. "He talked about your relationship like it was a business deal." That's exactly how he saw it. He and Julian's father had been planning to merge some of their real estate interests. The marriage was supposed to seal it. When I ended things, the deal fell through. Julian's father refused to work with mine after that. She wiped her eyes. "My father blamed me. He said I'd been selfish and short-sighted, that I'd chosen my own comfort over family responsibility. We didn't speak for almost a year." I stood up and paced the room. "Adriana, why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because it was in my past, because it had nothing to do with us." "Nothing to do with us." I turned to face her. "Your father just humiliated us in front of everyone we know because of it. I'd say it has something to do with us." "He shouldn't have done this," she said, her voice rising. "He promised me he'd let it go. When I told him I was dating you, he said he'd accepted that I was making my own choices now." Clearly he lied. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I thought he'd moved on, I thought." There was a sharp knock on the door. Before either of us could respond, Dominic walked in. "Well," he said, closing the door behind him, "I imagine you two have things to discuss." I stepped between him and Adriana. "What the hell was that?" "That," Dominic said calmly, "was the truth, something your wife should have shared with you long before today." "You had no right." "I had every right," he interrupted. "You're marrying into this family. You deserve to know what kind of woman you're binding yourself to." "Don't talk about her like that," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Like what? Like someone who makes selfish decisions and then hides them? Like someone who destroyed an advantageous family connection because she couldn't handle responsibility?" Adriana stood up. "You said you forgave me." "I said I'd move on," Dominic corrected. "I never said I forgave you. And I certainly never said I'd allow you to trap another man without him knowing your history." "Trap," I said. "We're in love. This isn't some arranged marriage." Dominic laughed, actually laughed. "Love? You think love matters in the long term? Marriage is a contract, Mr. Mitchell, a legal and social contract that benefits both families involved. My daughter broke one contract already. I wanted to make sure you knew what you were getting into before you signed another one." "Get out," Adriana said, her voice shaking with anger. "This is my wedding day. Get out." Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned to me. "The band is paid through the evening. Your guests are waiting. I suggest you decide whether you're going through with this farce or whether you'd like to make use of the annulment window while it's still available." He walked out, leaving the door open behind him. Adriana and I stood there in silence. From outside, we could hear music starting, the band moving into their normal set list as if nothing had happened. The sound of conversation and clinking glasses as the cocktail hour began. "Connor," Adriana said quietly, "I should have told you, I know that now, but I swear to you, that was a different person, a different life. I'm not that girl anymore." I wanted to believe her. Part of me did believe her. People make mistakes in college. People grow and change. The version of Adriana I knew was thoughtful and mature and nothing like what her father had described. But there was another part of me. A part that couldn't stop replaying that song, couldn't stop seeing the way Dominic had looked at us with such calculated cruelty, and couldn't stop wondering what else she hadn't told me. "We need to go out there," I finally said. "We need to do something, make an appearance. What do we tell people? I don't know, that your father is a manipulative bastard who tried to sabotage our wedding, which is the truth." She nodded slowly. "And us, are we okay?" I looked at my wife. My wife of less than an hour, whose father had just weaponized her past against both of us. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But we're not making any decisions today. Today we get through this. Tomorrow we figure out what comes next." We went back outside. The guests were scattered across the lawn and terrace, drinks in hand, pretending that what happened during the ceremony was just a quirky family tradition or something. People are remarkably good at convincing themselves things are fine when they desperately want them to be. My parents found us immediately. My mother hugged Adriana without a word. My father pulled me aside. "What was that?" he asked quietly. "Family drama," I said. "Long story. Your mother and I are here if you need anything, anything at all." I thanked him and tried to smile, but it felt like my face was made of wood. The reception proceeded. We did our first dance. To at last, like we'd planned, though Vincent had the decency to look ashamed the entire time. We cut the cake. We made the rounds to all the tables, thanking people for coming. Dominic and Cecilia stayed for exactly 1 hour, then left without saying goodbye. Leo found me near the end of the night, clearly drunk. "For what it's worth," he said, "I told him not to do it. I told him it was messed up, but he doesn't listen to anyone." "Why did he do it?" I asked. "What did he think he'd accomplish?" Leo shrugged. "He wanted you to call off the wedding. He thought if you knew about Adriana's past, you'd walk away. Then maybe she'd come back to the family fold, marry someone he approved of." "That's insane." "That's my father," Leo said and walked away. Adriana and I left the reception around 11. We were supposed to drive to a hotel in the city before flying out to Santorini for our honeymoon the next morning. Instead, we sat in the car in the circular driveway for 20 minutes without saying a word. Finally, Adriana spoke. "Do you want to cancel the honeymoon?" "Do you?" I asked. "I want to do whatever makes this okay." "I don't think anything's going to make this okay tonight," I said. "But we already paid for the trip. We might as well go." We went. We spent 10 days on a Greek island that should have been paradise. The hotels were beautiful. The food was incredible. The sunsets were breathtaking, and every moment felt like we were play acting at being newlyweds. When we got back to Philadelphia, reality set in. We moved into the apartment I'd been renting. Adriana didn't want to take money from her family for a place, and I didn't blame her. My 1-bedroom in Rittenhouse Square became our home. Adriana stopped speaking to her father entirely. Cecilia called a few times, trying to smooth things over, but Adriana wouldn't hear it. As far as she was concerned, Dominic had declared war and she wasn't surrendering. I threw myself into work. I took on extra cases, longer hours, anything to avoid. Thinking about the wedding, my colleagues asked how married life was treating me. I said it was great. I was learning to lie very well. 3 months after the wedding, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Connor Mitchell," a man's voice asked, speaking. "My name is Julian Torres. I think we need to talk." My blood went cold. "How did you get this number?" "It's not hard to find attorneys in Philadelphia. Listen, I know what happened at your wedding. It's all over social media. Someone posted a video." I closed my eyes. Of course someone had recorded it. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want to meet with you. There are things about Adriana that you need to know, things that Dominic barely scratched the surface of. I'm not interested in hearing about my wife's past relationships from her ex-boyfriend." "This isn't about a relationship," Julian said. "This is about money, a lot of money, money that went missing and was never accounted for." "What are you talking about?" "Meet me," Julian said. 1 hour, I'll text you the address. If you don't show up, I'll take what I know to the press. Your wife's family won't be the only one embarrassed." He hung up. I sat there for a long moment, phone in my hand. Every instinct told me not to go, told me that meeting with Julian was exactly what Dominic would want. Another wedge driven between Adriana and me, but the lawyer in me, the part that had been trained to follow evidence wherever it led. Couldn't ignore the possibility that there was more to this story. I told my assistant I had an appointment and left the office. Julian had sent me an address in Old City. A coffee shop that was mostly empty at 2 in the afternoon. I spotted him immediately. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit. The kind of guy who looked like he'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren ad. He stood when he saw me. We didn't shake hands. Thanks for coming. Said, I have 20 minutes, I said, sitting down across from him. Say what you need to say. Julian pulled out a folder. When Adriana and I were together, she was managing a charity foundation that her family had set up, the Castellano Scholarship Fund. It provided college tuition for underprivileged students in the Philadelphia area. Okay. The fund had about $2 million in it at the time. Donations from the family and their business associates. Adriana was in charge of vetting applications, awarding scholarships, managing the disbursements. He slid the folder across the table. $300,000 disappeared from that fund during her senior year, right before she broke up with me, right before she handled her situation. I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, transfer receipts, and what looked like audit reports. Where did the money go? I asked. That's the question, Julian said. It was transferred out in small increments over about 4 months. 10,000 here, 15,000 there. The transfers were authorized with Adriana's login credentials. When the family's accountant caught it during the annual audit, Dominic covered it up, replenished the fund with his own money, and buried the paper trail. Why? Because acknowledging that his daughter had embezzled from a charity would have destroyed the family's reputation. Better to make it disappear and pretend it never happened. Looked at the documents. They seemed legitimate, though I'd need a forensic accountant to verify them. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because Dominic Castellano destroyed my family's business relationship with his, because he blamed me for his daughter's choices and made sure I paid for them, and because I want you to know exactly who you married. Or, I said, you're a bitter ex who's trying to sabotage Adriana's marriage because you couldn't let her go. Julian smiled coldly. Believe whatever you want, but you should ask yourself, why would Dominic go to such extreme lengths to stop your wedding? Maybe it wasn't just about her past mistakes. Maybe it was about protecting you from future ones. He stood up. I've given you the information. What you do with it is your choice. He walked out of the coffee shop, leaving the folder on the table. I sat there for a long time, staring at the papers. Part of me wanted to throw them away, to walk out and never think about this again, but I couldn't. I'm a lawyer. I investigate, I verify, I follow evidence. I took the folder with me. That night I told Adriana I was working late. Instead, I went to a colleague who specialized in financial crimes. I showed him the documents Julian had given me. It took him 2 days, but he confirmed that the records were genuine. The transfers had happened, the money had disappeared, and it had all been authorized under Adriana's name. Does this prove she stole the money? I asked. Not definitively, he said. Credentials were hers, but that doesn't mean she was the one who used them. Could have been hacked, could have been someone else with access, could have been her. You'd need more investigation to say for certain. But it's possible. It's possible, he confirmed. I went home that night with the folder in my briefcase. Adriana was in the kitchen making dinner. She smiled when she saw me. There's my husband, she said. Long day? Yeah, I said. Listen, we need to talk. Her smile faded. That sounds ominous. I set the folder on the kitchen counter. Julian Torres contacted me. She went very still. What? He gave me these documents. They show money going missing from your family's charity foundation when you were in college, money that was transferred using your login credentials. Adriana's face went pale. She set down the wooden spoon she'd been holding. He had no right to contact you. So it's true? She closed her eyes. Connor, is it true? I asked again, my voice harder than I intended. The money went missing, yes, but I didn't take it. Then who did? She opened her eyes and looked at me. I don't know. I felt anger rising in my chest. You don't know. $300,000 disappears under your name and you don't know who took it. I was 21 years old, Connor. I was managing a foundation I had no business managing. My father put me in charge because it looked good on paper. The family heir giving back to the community, but I didn't know what I was doing. I had an assistant who handled most of the actual work. I just signed off on things. What assistant? Her name was Brianna Cho. She was a graduate student in the business school. She'd been recommended by one of my father's associates. She handled all the paperwork, all the transfers, everything. I trusted her. And where is she now? Adriana's jaw tightened. That's the problem. When the audit happened and the missing money was discovered, we tried to find her. She was gone, no forwarding address, disconnected phone, her apartment was cleared out. She just vanished. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Let me get this straight. $300,000 went missing. It was transferred using your credentials. Your assistant disappeared, and your father just covered it up. He didn't want the scandal, Adriana said. He replaced the money himself and told everyone involved to keep quiet. He made me sign documents saying I took full responsibility for any mismanagement of the fund, but that I'd repay any losses, except there were no losses because he'd already replaced the money. And you never reported the theft, never went to the police? My father forbade it. He said involving law enforcement would make everything public. The charity would be investigated. Our family's other business dealings would come under scrutiny. He said it was better to handle it quietly. I stared at her. Adriana, you covered up embezzlement. I didn't cover up anything. My father did. I wanted to report it. I wanted to find Brianna and press charges, but he wouldn't let me. You were an adult. You could have made your own choice. You don't understand how my father operates, she said, her voice breaking. When he tells you to do something, you do it, especially when he's holding your entire future over your head. He said if I went against him on this, he'd cut me off completely. No more tuition, no more living expenses, nothing. I ran my hands through my hair. So on top of everything else, on top of the pregnancy, the relationship with Julian, all of it, there's also embezzlement hanging over your head. I didn't embezzle anything, but you can't prove that, and you signed documents taking responsibility. Do you realize what this means? If this ever comes out, you could be charged. Even years later, financial crimes have long statutes of limitation. It won't come out, she said. My father made sure of that. Your father made that song happen at our wedding. Your father gave Julian the ammunition to come after you now. Your father doesn't protect you, Adriana. He uses you. She flinched like I'd slapped her. We stood there in silence. The dinner she'd been making started to burn. She turned off the stove without looking at it. What do you want me to say? She asked quietly. That I should have told you all of this before we got married? You're right, I should have. I should have told you about Julian, about the pregnancy, about the money. I should have laid out every mistake I've ever made and let you decide if I was still worth it. That's not fair. Isn't it? She turned to face me. You want to know why I didn't tell you? Because I knew this would happen. I knew you'd look at me differently. I knew every time something went wrong between us, you'd wonder if I was lying about something else. I knew I'd stop being Adriana and start being the woman with all the secrets. You're proving my point, I said. You hid things because you knew they'd change how I saw you, which means you got me to marry you under false pretenses. I got you to marry me because we love each other, she said, tears spilling down her face. Or at least I thought we did. I grabbed my briefcase. I need some air. Connor, please. I just need to think, Adriana. I need to process all of this. I walked out of the apartment before she could respond. I ended up at my parents' house in Roxborough. My mother took one look at my face and pulled me inside. My father was watching television in the living room. He muted it when he saw me. What happened? He asked. I told them everything. The song at the wedding, the conversation with Julian, the missing money, all of it. When I finished, my mother was the first to speak. Do you love her? She asked. What? Do you love Adriana? Setting aside everything else. All the history, all the complications. Do you love the woman you married? I thought about that. About the Adriana I'd fallen for at that charity fundraiser. The woman who'd stayed up all night with me when I was preparing for a difficult case. Who'd celebrated with me when I made partner. Who'd talked about the future we'd build together. I do, I said, but I don't know if I can trust her. My father leaned forward. Connor, I'm going to tell you something I learned in 40 years of marriage. Everyone has a past. Everyone has made decisions they regret. The question isn't whether your partner is perfect. The question is whether they're trying to be better. She lied to me, Dad. She withheld information, he corrected. Not the same thing. Did she actively deceive you, or did she just not volunteer every difficult thing that's ever happened to her? I didn't have an answer. My mother stood up. You need to talk to her, really talk to her. Not in anger, not in accusations. You need to sit down together and figure out if you want to fight for this marriage or if you want to let her father win. What does he have to do with it? Everything, she said. He orchestrated that wedding disaster to drive you apart. He clearly gave Julian the information to come after you. He's trying to destroy your marriage because he never approved of it in the first place. The question is, are you going to let him? I went back to the apartment around midnight. Adriana was sitting on the couch in the dark, still in the same clothes. Her eyes were red from crying. I sat down next to her. I'm sorry, I said. I shouldn't have walked out like that. No, she said. You had every right to. I should have told you everything from the beginning. We sat in silence for a moment. I need to know something, I said. And I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you take that money? She looked me straight in the eye. No, I swear to you on everything I have. I did not take that money. Brianna did. I don't know why. I don't know where she went, but it wasn't me. Okay, I said. I believe you. She blinked. You do. I do, but we need to fix this. We need to find Brianna and clear your name properly, because right now you're vulnerable, and people like your father and Julian, they're going to keep using this against you unless we resolve it. How do we do that? We investigate, I said. I'm a lawyer. I know people. We find Brianna, we get the truth, and we make this right. The next morning, I called in a favor from a private investigator I'd worked with on a corporate case. His name was Marcus Chen, former FBI, now doing private work. I explained the situation, leaving out the wedding drama and focusing on the financial aspects. So you're looking for a woman who disappeared 5 years ago after embezzling from a charity, he said. That's not a small ask. I know. But if anyone can find her, it's you. What's the budget? I told him. It was most of my savings, the money I'd been putting aside for a down payment on a house someday. I'll see what I can do, Marcus said. It took him 3 weeks, but he found her. Brianna Cho was living in Portland, Oregon under her married name, Brianna Walsh. She'd gotten married 2 years after she left Philadelphia. She had a daughter. She worked as an accountant for a mid-sized tech company. She'd built an entirely new life. What do you want to do with this information? Marcus asked. I need to talk to her, I said. You want me to set up a meeting? No, I'll handle it from here. I flew to Portland the following week. I didn't tell Adriana, not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't want to get her hopes up. If Brianna refused to talk or denied everything, I didn't want to put Adriana through that disappointment. I found Brianna's office building, a modern glass structure in the Pearl District. I waited in the lobby until I saw her come in for work. She looked older than the photo Adriana had shown me, but it was definitely her. I approached her at the elevators. Brianna Cho, I said. She turned, her expression confused. I'm sorry, do I know you? My name is Connor Mitchell. I'm married to Adriana Castellano. The blood drained from her face. I have to go, please, I said. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm not here to make accusations. I just want to talk 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. She looked around the lobby, calculating her options. Finally, she nodded. There's a coffee shop around the corner. We sat in the back of the coffee shop. Brianna kept her purse in her lap like she might need to run at any moment. How did you find me? She asked. I'm a lawyer. I have resources, but like I said, I'm not here to cause problems. I'm here because I need to understand what happened 5 years ago. She bit her lip. What did Adriana tell you? That money went missing from the Castellano Scholarship Fund. That it was transferred using her credentials, and that you disappeared right when it was discovered. Brianna closed her eyes. I was afraid this would come back eventually. Did you take the money? I asked. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Yes, I took it. I felt a surge of validation and also sadness, because this confirmed that Adriana had been telling the truth, but it also meant someone she'd trusted had betrayed her. Why? I asked. Brianna's hands shook as she picked up her coffee cup. My brother was sick, leukemia. He needed a bone marrow transplant, but our insurance wouldn't cover it. They said it was experimental. My family didn't have the money. We were going to lose him. So you stole from a charity. I know how it sounds, she said quickly. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate. I'd been managing the fund for Adriana for almost a year. I knew how the transfers worked. I knew I could move small amounts without triggering immediate attention, I thought. I thought I'd be able to pay it back before anyone noticed. But you didn't. No, the audit happened faster than I expected, and when I realized I was going to be caught, I panicked. I used the last of the money to disappear. I moved across the country, changed my name when I got married, started over. And your brother, her eyes filled with tears. He died anyway, 3 months after I took the money. The transplant didn't work. I sat back in my chair. Brianna, you need to understand something. Adriana's father made her sign documents taking responsibility for what you did. She's been living under the threat of prosecution for 5 years. Her reputation has been destroyed. And her marriage, my marriage, is suffering because of this. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant for her to take the fall. I thought Dominic would just replace the money and move on. I didn't think he'd make her the scapegoat. That's exactly what he did. And now I need you to make this right. She looked up sharply. What are you asking me to do? I need you to sign a written statement confessing to the embezzlement. I need you to explain exactly what happened and clear Adriana's name. If I do that, I'll be prosecuted. Maybe, I said. Maybe not. It's been 5 years. The money was repaid. The victims, the scholarship fund, they were made whole. A prosecutor might not see enough public interest to pursue it, but that's a risk you're going to have to take. And if I refuse, then I'll report your current location to Dominic Castellano and let him decide what to do with the information. And from what I know about him, he won't be as understanding as I'm being. It wasn't a threat exactly, but it was close enough. Brianna stared at me for a long time. You really love her, don't you? Yes. Then I'll do it. I'll write the statement. But please, I have a daughter now, a life. If this goes to court, I need to know that someone will make sure my family is okay. I can't promise you anything about the legal outcome, I said. But I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to present this in the most sympathetic light possible. She nodded slowly. Okay, give me a few days to write it out properly. I'll send it to you. True to her word, Brianna emailed me a detailed statement 3 days later. It was 5 pages long, explaining her brother's illness, her desperation, the methodology she'd used to take the money, and her deep regret for what she'd done. She also explicitly stated that Adriana had no knowledge of the theft and no involvement in it. I had the document notarized through a contact in Portland to verify its authenticity. Then I brought it home to Adriana. When I showed her the statement, she read it 3 times without saying a word. Then she looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. You found her, she whispered. You actually found her. I told you we'd fix this, I said. She threw her arms around me. Thank you so much. I didn't know if this would ever be resolved. It's not completely resolved yet, I cautioned. We still need to figure out what to do with this information. Do we turn it over to the authorities? Do we confront your father with it? Do we keep it as insurance? I want my father to know, Adriana said immediately. I want him to know that I didn't do what he's been holding over me for 5 years. We arranged a meeting at the Castellano estate the following week. Just the three of us. Adriana, me, and Dominic. Cecilia wasn't invited. Leo wasn't invited. This was between the people directly involved. Dominic met us in his study, a dark wood-paneled room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and leather furniture that probably cost more than my car. He sat behind his desk like a judge at a bench. Well, he said, to what do I owe this surprise visit? I pulled out the statement and set it on his desk. Read that. He picked it up, scanning the first page. His expression didn't change as he read, but I saw his jaw tighten slightly when he reached the part where Brianna confessed. When he finished, he set it down carefully. Where did you get this? I found Brianna, I said. I tracked her down and got the truth. Adriana didn't take that money. She never did, and you knew it was possible someone else was responsible, but you blamed her anyway. I didn't blame her, Dominic said coldly. I held her accountable for her poor judgment in trusting the wrong person, which is exactly what she did again when she married you. Adriana stood up. You tried to destroy my wedding because you couldn't control who I married. You spent years making me feel like a criminal for something I didn't do, and you've manipulated everyone around me to maintain your control. I protected this family, Dominic said, his voice rising. I protected you when you made terrible decisions. I covered up your pregnancy. I replaced the stolen money. I kept your reputation intact when you could have been publicly humiliated. You didn't protect me, Adriana said. You controlled me. There's a difference. And look where your independence has gotten you, Dominic shot back. Married to a man with no family connections, no wealth, no standing, living in a one-bedroom apartment like some struggling graduate student. Is that the life you wanted? Yes, Adriana said firmly. Because it's mine, it's my choice. And I'd rather struggle with Connor than live in a mansion under your thumb. Dominic turned his attention to me. You think you've won something here? You think proving she didn't steal money changes anything? It changes everything, I said. It means you can't hold this over her anymore. It means she's free of the last piece of leverage you had. I don't need leverage, Dominic said. I have patience. You're young, you think love conquers all, but wait until the money runs out. Wait until you can't afford to give her the life she's used to. Wait until she starts resenting you for it. Then we'll see who she chooses. She's already chosen, I said, and she chose me. We left the estate that afternoon. As we drove away, Adriana looked back at the house, the home she'd grown up in. One last time, no regrets, I asked. None, she said. For a while, things were better. Adriana and I felt like we'd won something important. We'd faced down her father, cleared her name, and proven that our marriage could survive the worst kind of interference. But Dominic's words stayed with me. Wait until the money runs out. The truth was, money was already tight. My salary as a junior partner was good, but it wasn't enough to support the lifestyle Adriana had grown up with. She never complained. But I noticed the small sacrifices. The way she'd look at handbags she used to buy without thinking. The way she'd suggest we skip vacations we'd planned. I started taking on extra work. More cases, longer hours, anything to increase my billable hours and boost my income. I was at the office until midnight most nights. I worked weekends. Adriana understood. At least she said she did. But I could see the toll it was taking. We barely saw each other. When we did, we were both exhausted. 6 months after the confrontation with her father, Adriana got a job offer. A friend from college was opening a gallery in Rittenhouse Square and needed someone to manage operations. The pay wasn't huge, but it was something. Adriana was excited about it. I should have been happy for her. Instead, I felt something ugly twist in my gut. Because the friend who'd offered her the job, I later found out, had business connections to the Castellano family, which meant there was a good chance Dominic had arranged the whole thing. When I confronted Adriana about it, she denied it. Said her friend had reached out independently. Said her father had nothing to do with it, but I didn't believe her. We had our first real fight that night. Not the hurt, emotional confrontations we'd had before, but actual anger, raised voices, accusations. You're letting him back into our lives, I said. I'm taking a job, she countered. A job I want, a job that will help us financially, a job he arranged. You don't know that. I know how your father operates. This is exactly what he does. He plants seeds, he creates opportunities, and slowly, gradually, he pulls you back into his orbit. So what am I supposed to do? She demanded. Turn down every opportunity that comes my way because it might somehow be connected to my family. Live my entire life paranoid that he's pulling strings. If that's what it takes to stay free of him, then yes. She stared at me. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Because it seems to me like he's winning, we're fighting, we're struggling, and now you're considering taking his help, which is exactly what he predicted would happen. Adriana took the job. I tried to be supportive, but the resentment festered. Every time she came home talking about the gallery, about her friend, about the clients they were attracting. I wondered how much of it was legitimate and how much was Dominic's influence. Our relationship became strained. We stopped talking about anything meaningful. We coexisted in the apartment like roommates rather than spouses. And then, 10 months after our wedding, Adriana told me she was pregnant. I should have been thrilled. We talked about having kids eventually. But the timing was terrible. We were barely holding our marriage together. We were living paycheck to paycheck. And now we were bringing a child into this mess. Adriana saw my reaction. You're not happy. I'm processing, I said. You don't want this baby. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, she said quietly. I can see it on your face. The pregnancy changed everything. Suddenly, staying in a one-bedroom apartment wasn't viable. We needed space. We needed a real home. Which meant we needed more money. I went to my firm and asked for a raise. They said I needed to wait until the next review cycle. I asked about making senior partner early. They said it wasn't possible. I was trapped, working myself to death for a salary that would never be enough. And then Dominic made his move. He called me at work. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Connor, he said. I hear congratulations are in order. You and Adriana are expecting. What do you want, Dominic? I want to help. I know you're struggling financially. I know you're trying to provide for my daughter and my grandchild. I'm offering you a way to make that easier. I don't want your money. I'm not offering money, he said. I'm offering a job, a position in my company's legal department, general counsel. It pays 3 times what you're making now. Full benefits, security, everything you need to give Adriana and the baby a good life. I felt my stomach drop. I'm not working for you. Why not? Because of pride. Pride doesn't pay for diapers, Connor. Pride doesn't put food on the table. You can be stubborn and struggle, or you can be smart and accept help. This isn't help. This is control. You're trying to buy me. I'm trying to ensure my grandchild has a stable life, he said. But if you'd rather let your family suffer because you're too proud to accept a good opportunity, well, that tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. He hung up. I didn't tell Adriana about the call immediately, but it ate at me, because the terrible truth was, he was right. Pride wouldn't pay our bills. Pride wouldn't give our child the life they deserved. But working for Dominic would mean surrendering everything we'd fought for. 2 weeks later, Adriana came home from a doctor's appointment looking shaken. What's wrong? I asked immediately. She sat down on the couch. The doctor found something on the ultrasound, nothing definitive, but there's a possibility the baby could have a heart condition. We need more tests, specialists. The insurance might not cover all of it. How much are we talking about? Could be tens of thousands of dollars, she said. If the baby needs surgery after birth, it could be more. I felt the walls closing in. That night. I called Dominic back. I'll take the job, I said, but I have conditions. I'm listening. Adriana can't know you arranged this. As far as she's concerned, I was recruited independently. And you don't get to use this as leverage. You don't get to hold it over either of us. Agreed, Dominic said. Welcome to the family business, Connor. I started at Castellano Development 2 months later. The work was actually interesting. Complex real estate transactions, zoning disputes, contract negotiations, and the money was life-changing. Suddenly, we could afford a 2-bedroom condo. We could pay for the medical specialists. We could breathe, but I felt like I'd sold my soul. Adriana was thrilled that I'd been recruited by such a prestigious company. She didn't question it. She didn't suspect. She was just relieved that our financial stress was over. I hated lying to her, but I told myself it was for the baby, for our family. That sometimes doing the right thing meant compromising your principles. Our son was born in early spring. We named him Oliver. He did have a minor heart condition that required surgery when he was 3 months old, but the surgery was successful. He came through it perfectly healthy, holding him for the first time. Seeing Adriana look at him with such pure love, I thought maybe everything I'd sacrificed had been worth it. Maybe Dominic had won, but we had Oliver, and that mattered more than pride, except Dominic wasn't done. When Oliver was 6 months old, I got called into Dominic's office. It was late afternoon. Most of the staff had gone home. Close the door, he said. I did. You've been doing good work, he said. Better than I expected. Honestly, you're smart, you're thorough. You understand complex legal structures. Thank you, I said cautiously, which is why I'm promoting you, senior counsel. You'll oversee the entire legal department. Significant raise, corner office, the works. What's the catch? He smiled. No catch, just recognition of good work. Dominic, what do you want? His smile faded. I want you to understand something, Connor. Everything you have. Your job, your income, your ability to provide for my daughter and grandson. It exists because I allow it to exist. I can give and I can take away. Do you understand? I understood perfectly. This wasn't a promotion. It was a reminder I worked for him, I owed him, and he could destroy me any time he wanted. I understand, I said. Good, because there's something else we need to discuss. My company is involved in a development deal in South Philadelphia. Old warehouses being converted to luxury condos. The neighborhood association is fighting the zoning changes we need. I need you to find a way to make their legal challenges go away. How? I don't care how. Find leverage, find mistakes in their paperwork, find dirt on their leadership, whatever it takes. That's not legal advice, I said. That's intimidation. That's business, he corrected. And it's part of your job now. I left his office feeling sick. This was what I'd signed up for. This was the price of financial security. Doing things that compromised my ethics because I'd put myself in a position where I couldn't say no. I thought about quitting, about walking away and finding another job somewhere else. But then I thought about Oliver, about the medical bills we'd paid, about the savings account we were finally building, about the life we could give him if I just kept my head down and did what I was told, so I did it. I found the leverage Dominic wanted. I made the neighborhood association's legal challenge disappear. And I hated myself a little more. This went on for a year. Task after task, each one pushing me further into moral gray areas. I told myself I was protecting my family. I told myself everyone compromises in business, but the truth was I'd become exactly what I'd always feared. I'd become Dominic's tool, then everything came crashing down. It started with an investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office opened an inquiry into Castellano Development's business practices. Bribery allegations, fraud, environmental violations, the kind of investigation that could bring down the entire company, and I, as senior counsel, was right in the middle of it. Federal agents showed up at my office with a warrant. They seized my computer, my files, everything. They escorted me out of the building in front of all my colleagues. Adriana was watching the news when I got home. The story was already breaking. Castellano Development under federal investigation. She looked at me with horror. Connor, what's happening? I don't know, I said, but that was a lie. I knew exactly what was happening. All those tasks Dominic had given me, all those moral compromises, they were going to come out, and I was going to be the one to take the fall. I hired a criminal defense attorney. His name was William Preston, one of the best in Philadelphia. When I explained the situation, he shook his head. You're in serious trouble, he said. The documents you signed, the actions you took on behalf of the company, they make you liable. Even if you were following orders, you're the one whose name is on everything. What about Dominic? He's insulated. That's how these things work. The people at the top set policy but keep their hands clean. The lawyers and executives below them do the actual work and take the risk. So I'm the scapegoat. Unless you cooperate with the investigation. I looked up sharply. You mean testify against Dominic? If you have information about wrongdoing that goes beyond what you directly participated in. Yes, the U.S. Attorney's Office might be willing to offer you a deal. I went home that night and told Adriana everything. The real story of how I got the job, the tasks Dominic had assigned me, the compromises I'd made, all of it. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You lied to me, she finally said. I did. You took a job from my father after everything we'd been through, after everything we'd fought for. I did it for you, I said. For Oliver, for our family. Don't you dare, she said, her voice shaking. Don't you dare blame this on me. You made these choices. You sold out everything you believed in, and you did it without even talking to me. What would you have said if I'd told you that we couldn't afford the medical bills, that our son might not get the care he needed? I would have said we'd find another way, she said. I would have said we'd sell everything we owned. I would. Said we'd ask for help from anyone but my father. She stood up and went to our bedroom. A few minutes later, she came out with a suitcase. What are you doing? I asked. I'm taking Oliver and staying with a friend for a few days. I need time to think. Adriana, please, you destroyed everything, Connor. You destroyed your integrity. You destroyed our marriage, and you did it while lying to me every single day. I don't know if I can forgive that. She picked up Oliver from his crib. He was sleeping, completely unaware that his parents' lives were falling apart around him. I'll call you, she said, and walked out. The next few weeks were a nightmare. The investigation deepened. More charges were filed. The media coverage was relentless. Castellano Development lawyer accused of fraud. My face was all over the news. My attorney negotiated with the U.S. Attorney's Office. They offered me a deal. Testify against Dominic and other executives, and they'd recommend minimal jail time. Maybe a year, maybe less with good behavior. If I didn't cooperate, I was looking at 10 years minimum. What do I do? I asked William. You cooperate, he said. You don't owe Dominic Castellano anything. He put you in this position. He used you. Now you use the information you have to save yourself. I agreed to cooperate. The debriefing sessions with federal prosecutors lasted days. I told them everything I knew about Dominic's business practices, the bribes, the fraudulent contracts, the environmental shortcuts, all of it. When I finished, the lead prosecutor looked satisfied. "This is good," she said. "This is enough to bring charges against Castellano himself." "What happens to me?" I asked. "You'll plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy. We'll recommend 6 months in a minimum security facility. You'll serve about 4 months with good behavior. After that, you rebuild your life. 4 months. It didn't sound like much, but it felt like a lifetime. The trial was set for 6 months later. Dominic was indicted on multiple counts. His arrest made national news. The Castellano family empire was crumbling, and I was the one who'd brought it down. Adriana came to see me at my apartment one night. She'd been staying with her friend for 2 months. We'd talked a few times, mostly about Oliver, but nothing substantive about us. "I saw the news," she said, sitting down across from me. "You're testifying against my father." "I am." "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do, and because I'm not going to prison for 10 years to protect him." She nodded slowly. "I understand. I think part of me has been waiting for someone to finally stand up to him, for someone to hold him accountable for everything he's done." "Are you angry with me?" I asked. "I'm angry about a lot of things," she said. "I'm angry that you lied to me. I'm angry that you worked for him. I'm angry that my father manipulated both of us from the very beginning, but mostly, I'm angry at myself for not seeing it all sooner." She looked down at her hands. "I've spent my whole life under his control. Every decision I made, he was there in the background pulling strings. When I got pregnant in college, he made it about him. When the money went missing, he made it about him. When we got married, he tried to destroy it because it wasn't about him. He's a narcissist," I said. "Everything has to revolve around him. And I enabled it," Adriana said. "I kept going back. I kept hoping he'd change. I kept thinking that if I just proved myself enough, he'd finally accept me as an independent person. That was never going to happen. I know that now." We sat in silence for a moment. "What happens to us?" I asked. Adriana took a deep breath. "I don't know. I meant what I said. You destroyed my trust, but I also know that you were put in an impossible situation. My father is really good at creating those. I should have told you. I should have been honest from the beginning." "Yes," she agreed. "You should have, but I also should have been honest with you from the beginning, about Julian, about the money, about everything. We've both been carrying secrets, Connor. We've both been trying to protect each other in ways that ended up hurting us. So where does that leave us?" She met my eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but I want to try, for Oliver, for us, for everything we built before this all fell apart. It wasn't a reconciliation, not yet. But it was a beginning. The trial started in late fall. It was a media circus. Dominic arrived every day in expensive suits, looking defiant. Cecilia sat behind him in the gallery, stoic and silent. Leo didn't attend. I testified for 3 days. I walked the jury through everything. The jobs Dominic had assigned me that crossed ethical lines, the pressure he'd applied, the threats implied but never stated directly, the systematic corruption that ran through every level of his company. Dominic's attorney tried to tear me apart on cross-examination, painted me as a disgruntled employee seeking revenge, a liar willing to say anything to save himself, but the documents backed up my testimony. The paper trail was clear. When I finished testifying, I looked at Dominic one last time. He stared back at me with pure hatred. No more pretense of civility, no more manipulation, just rage that someone had finally beaten him at his own game. The trial lasted 2 months. The prosecution called dozens of witnesses. They presented hundreds of documents. They built an overwhelming case. The jury deliberated for 4 days. When they came back, they found Dominic guilty on 17 counts. Fraud, bribery, conspiracy, money laundering. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. I watched from the back of the courtroom as they led him away in handcuffs. Cecilia finally broke, crying quietly into her hands. Leo, who'd shown up for the sentencing, just looked numb. Adriana wasn't there. She'd said she couldn't watch her father be sentenced, no matter what he'd done. I understood. My own sentencing came 2 weeks later. As promised, the prosecution recommended minimal jail time. The judge gave me 6 months in a minimum security facility with credit for good behavior. I reported to the facility in January. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was going to prison for helping the man who'd tried to destroy my marriage. The man who'd orchestrated a song at my wedding to humiliate me. The man who'd spent years manipulating everyone around him. But in a way, I was also going to prison for my own choices, for compromising my ethics, for lying to my wife, for believing I could make deals with someone like Dominic Castellano and come out clean. I served 4 months. It was the longest 4 months of my life, but it gave me time to think about who I wanted to be, about what kind of father I wanted to be for Oliver, about whether Adriana and I could really rebuild what we'd broken. When I got out, Adriana was waiting for me outside the facility. Oliver was with her. now a toddler walking and talking. He didn't really understand where I'd been, just that Daddy was gone and now Daddy was back. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I replied. "You ready to come home?" I looked at her, really looked at her. She looked tired. The last year had aged her. But there was also something new in her expression. Strength. Independence. She'd survived without me. She'd survived without her father's money or influence. She'd built a life for herself and Oliver on her own terms. "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready." We didn't move back in together right away. Adriana said she needed more time, needed to be sure I'd really changed, that I wouldn't make the same mistakes again. I got a job at a small public interest law firm. The pay was terrible compared to what I'd been making, but the work was meaningful, helping people who couldn't afford expensive lawyers, fighting against the kind of corporate corruption I'd once been part of. It felt like penance. But it also felt right. 6 months after I got out of prison, Adriana invited me to dinner, just the two of us. Her friend watched Oliver for the evening. We went to a small Italian restaurant in South Philly, the kind of place where you could actually have a conversation. "I've been thinking," she said after we ordered, "about us, about everything that's happened. And I think we both made mistakes, huge mistakes. We lied to each other. We let my father manipulate us. We forgot what brought us together in the first place." "Love," I said. "Love," she agreed. "But also partnership. We were supposed to be a team. Instead, we kept secrets and made decisions without each other." "I'm sorry," I said, "for all of it." "I know," she said. "I'm sorry too." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I want to try again, really try. No secrets this time, no protecting each other by hiding things. Complete honesty even when it's hard." "I want that too," I said. "Then let's do it. Let's rebuild our marriage the right way this time." It wasn't easy. Rebuilding trust never is, but slowly over months and then years we found our way back to each other. We moved into a modest house in West Philly, nothing fancy, but it was ours. Paid for with money we'd earned honestly. Oliver grew up knowing both his parents, knowing that relationships require work, knowing that mistakes can be forgiven but not forgot. Dominic served 8 years of his sentence before dying of a heart attack in prison. Cecilia called to tell us. Her voice was hollow, emptied of all emotion. Adriana went to the funeral. I stayed home with Oliver. She said she needed closure, needed to say goodbye to the father she'd wanted him to be, not the man he'd actually been. When she came home, she seemed lighter, like she'd finally let go of something heavy she'd been carrying for decades. Years later, I was sitting in our backyard watching Oliver play when Adriana came out with 2 glasses of wine. "Remember our wedding day?" she asked, sitting down next to me. "Every detail," I said. "Do you ever regret it marrying me, getting involved with my family?" I thought about that, about the wedding, about the song, about everything that had come after. "No," I said honestly. "I regret the choices I made, I regret the lies, but I don't regret marrying you because despite everything, despite your father, despite the trial, despite all of it, you were worth it." She smiled and leaned her head on my shoulder. "We were a mess, weren't we?" "We were," I agreed. "But we figured it out." We sat there in comfortable silence watching our son play, and I thought about the band at our wedding, about that song Dominic had paid them to play, the song about secrets and lies and betrayal. At the time, it had felt like the end of everything, but it had actually been the beginning. The beginning of us learning who we really were, the beginning of us breaking free from Dominic's control, the beginning of us building something real. The song was meant to destroy us. Instead, it saved us, because it forced us to confront everything we'd been hiding from each other. It brought all our secrets into the light, and it showed us that love isn't about perfection. It's about fighting through the imperfections together. My name is Connor Mitchell. I married a woman whose father tried to sabotage our wedding with a song. I made terrible choices. I lied to my wife. I compromised everything I believed in. I went to prison, but I also learned that redemption is possible, that marriages can survive almost anything if both people are willing to fight for them, and that sometimes the worst moments of your life can lead to the best ones. Was it worth it? Every painful, complicated, devastating moment of it? Yeah, it was. Because at the end of the day, I have a wife I love, a son I'm proud of, and a life built on truth instead of lies, and that's more than I ever thought I'd have after that song played at my wedding. This is Cheating Stories Exposed. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're going through something similar, if you're trapped in a relationship with someone who's trying to control you, if you're keeping secrets that are destroying your marriage, I want you to know something. The truth will come out eventually. It's better to face it on your own terms, and it's never too late to start over. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more real stories of betrayal, redemption, and everything in between. Until next time.